Hi, everyone. It's Lynn and Mary, and this is another episode of Ticked or Tick Ed. So we need to give you an update on what happened at the Capitol last week, or actually this week. It's Friday today. So we were there Tuesday and Wednesday with Meg Bakich and Alice Linehan and some other parents testifying at some of the Senate Education and House Education hearing meetings. And so we're going to give you an update on that. There's a lot going on with takeovers across Texas with TEA, and we exposed some people while we were at the legislature. So that was fun. So let's see. Let's start with Mary, do you want to start with the grievance, the deputy of grievance, and get that out of the way?
Yeah, let's just talk about the Texas Education Agency. I mean, it has to be the most failed agency in the state of Texas. And our governor has virtue signaled that he is going to appoint Mike Morath commissioner for year 7, 8, 9, and 10, I believe, because I mean, he's got 4 years. Abbott has 4 years ahead of him. And in that time frame, the Texas education system will be unrecognizable, completely destroyed. However, the paperwork has not been filled out. So if you're a praying person, pray he doesn't fill it out and pray he does intend to not move forward with that. He has done this with a few other positions where he's just said he was going to reappoint, but never filled out the documents for them to be confirmed. If he is put forth for confirmation, if this Senate confirms this commissioner, they should all be voted out of office. Absolutely no two ways about it.
Agreed.
We are sitting here 20 years into education where our Texas education system is falling off of a cliff.
And yeah, it's been Republican led for the last several decades.
Absolutely.
So we have ourselves to blame. Now we realize there are parenting issues and there's morality issues, and people are, society is a problem. The way that people are parenting their children is certainly a factor. But if you look at the education system and who has been in charge for so long, it is the conservatives or the Republicans, not conservatives.
So let's just pick this apart real quick. So we've talked across the state of Texas about the return on the taxpayer investment in the Texas education system. Yeah. And the spending has gone up by higher than 35%, and the performance has gone down greater than the spending has gone up. So there's absolutely no return on the investment. And we will be happy to pop slides into this presentation to show you that detail. But when you break it apart and you look at it by the different deputies of governance, I want to start with, we released the audio of Steve Leschelo, who was the new hire for deputy of governance. And he's the one who processes and follows up on any complaint that's made by a...
I can't hear you. You're frozen.
Who process those.
Sorry, you froze up. Repeat that last part.
Oh, so sorry. So we know of more than 45 complaints that have been made by parents to the state, and nothing has happened to a single one of them. And a lot of them are bullying incidents. And then we had Leschelo call one of the parents, and you released that audio and you heard it. So we would just say, Deputy of Governance, the governance division of the Texas Education Agency has been failed, and is probably very likely responsible for what happened in Uvalde, because they just don't do anything. And it is the commissioner's responsibility to make sure that every division of the education agency is operating as it should. And then we have the technology.
Before that, it was AJ Crable, who we can't even find a high school diploma. We think he got a GED, but he definitely does not have a college degree. And he was the second in command at TEA. So yeah, Morath has a history of hiring people who are not qualified, and there's controversy surrounding them. So, okay, we're going to go straight into what happened at the legislature. And I want to
talk about technology before that, because we exposed the week before in the House Melody Parrish and the technology, because the state is being asked to put forth virtual education throughout this, for everybody to fund that lane. And then they're being asked for these technology bills 1605 in the House and 2565, excuse me, in the Senate. And they are open education resources is 100% on a technology Wi-Fi based device. And we have Melody Parrish, who has testified the systems are inadequate. They're not secure. The firewalls can be breached. So if every child can figure out their way around that firewall, then every pervert, can find their way around. Everyone who wants to put pornography in front of children or have a pop-up into an educational program that they're on can find their way into the system. If it's not secure, it's not secure, and we shouldn't even be having the conversation. And we have her on video telling the SBOE that it's not secure. So we've given that data to the House and to the Senate education committees. And yet they still seem to be pondering that technology is a safe place for the children to be. And we're not even talking about getting into the return to a positive education achievement level. That's a different conversation. And then number 3 is, I guess we poked a hole in the TEA tank. And then what's the young lady's name? Help me here. I can't remember.
Her name is Kristen Hull. Kristen Dobson was her maiden name. And if you want, I can play, before we do that, I could play Melody Parrish, but you tell me.
You can hear me? Yes.
I mean, it's up to you. I think we make the video available for the public on.
Yeah, I'll put it in the link in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we make that available. And of course, for them to listen to the whole thing, because it's devastating when you hear the entire thing. And then we might give you some minute marks to go listen to, but the public needs to know about this. And the SBOE held them account and said, what are we going to do about this? There's been no follow-up whatsoever. So we have 2 divisions of the Texas Education Agency that are blatantly failed divisions of the education agency that both directly aligned to how safe the children are. Doesn't even deal with education. It's about safety and security of the children. And so to me, I know that I heard Senator Creighton talking about safety as being one of his priorities for education. And I don't see how they can even continue to move forward with anything if they don't do an audit of TEA and take the power away from the Texas Education Agency. Instead of power and authority being taken away from these school districts, the place that needs to be taken over is the Texas Education Agency.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So let's talk about testimony.
Well, so we have several, and the thing is, I don't know how to do it where it doesn't play the dang commercial. So I didn't download it before this. I could put it on mute for a sec if you want to keep talking, but go ahead.
Well, I can always do that, or I can throw a temper tantrum like I did at the Senate hearing. So what we were testifying on originally was this bill, this technology bill. And we know for a fact that the bill came from Dick Weekly, TLR, and Mike Morath, that it was written by them. And that they, interestingly enough, they went to, as we say Mike Morath does, he goes to different people and tells a different story. Well, clearly he had gone to Chairman Buckley and told Chairman Buckley that a school in his district, Temple, had great success with Amplify, and that this was the solution to all the problems, and that they needed to write a bill and pass a law that would allow him to put this open education resource up there, and some oxymoron within the bill. It's mandatory, but it's not mandatory. It's going to solve all the problems because it's not going to let them subvert SB3. But then at the local level, they can put in whatever they want to put in. It was just nonsense. And I don't know if the chairman of both chambers understood how much nonsense was in it before they actually got up there to defend it, because they put their names on it. But it is Mike Morath and Dick Weekly's bill. And they're the ones that are pushing this. And we know why, because all of the people who would profiteer off of this happen to show up in the rooms to make sure that the Senate delivered on it. And I do feel sorry for them a little bit, but we pulled the numbers on Temple, and we had somebody come testify on short notice that the information they were posing on Temple's success with this were not substantiated. That you could not substantiate them. And then we got into conversation because we didn't have the heads up in the Senate as to the fact that Morath had apparently gone to Senator West and said, "Oh, Cedar Hill in your district has done great with Amplify. They've had great improvements." And so Senator West starts telling that, and we had the numbers pulled on Cedar Hill, and they're no good. They don't show any improvement. And we already knew what Fort Worth was. And, we're viewing the numbers of other instructional material that schools around the state that have the same demographics have used. And what we see right now is that not only is it a distortion of the truth that Amplify has been successful, but that there are other curriculums out there that are being used in our school systems that are in fact much higher quality. And you can tell the quality of it because the performance is better.
Sorry.
So,
you don't understand.
That's okay. Go ahead. So that's where we are when we get here in this hearing.
The use of Amplify. Yes or no?
So
Amplify is working on that?
Local districts conduct local assessments to determine.
I understand all that.
Great.
All right. The point I'm asking you is TA appears to be recommending Amplify. Am I correct or am I wrong about that?
We have a set of open education resources.
Hold on. If you don't understand the question, I'll rephrase it, okay? Is TA recommending the use of Amplify? Yes or no?
So we have procured underlying content from Amplify that we now own, but it is distinct from Amplify. So that is what I was going to clarify. We do believe in, we want to make a high quality open education resource, but that is not Amplify. We procured content that we then have continuously improved and developed, and that is now distinct from Amplify. So Amplify as an organization has a number of products that exist in the private market that they are able, they can continue to sell to districts, but the OER product is now owned by the state, and we can continue to improve it and edit it apart from Amplify.
All right, so is it an Amplify product?
It is a state product now.
Did you purchase it from Amplify?
Some of the underlying content was originally purchased from Amplify, but has since already been revised and will continue to be revised based on feedback. Yes, we did. Okay. We did receive.
As it relates to the use of Amplify by school districts, you're saying that we have to go to the various school districts that are using it in order to determine whether or not it was successful. I'm asking TDA, check with Fort Worth, find out whether it was utilized, and use it, do the evaluation as to whether or not it was successful. Can you do that for me?
We can definitely.
I thought you could. So
talk with Fort Worth and see what they would like to share.
When can you get that done? I'm good.
Thank you, Senator Webb.
I'm just hold on. When can you get that done?
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. I can check back with the team. We can check with Fort Worth and see what they're willing to share, but they're not required to share with us local assessment data.
Okay. I'd like to get the answer tomorrow if all possible. That's what I'm talking about. That makes no sense at all.
And so I just want to ask, so
it makes no sense at all.
Amplify, you extracted some things from Amplify, modified them, changed them up, and you use them at different schools, or they're part of curriculum.
So whenever
what did y'all do with them when you took them out, extracted, changed? What'd you do with it then? Because
yes, ma'am.
Under this bill, there has to be permission, or we have to know what the TA is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Before we didn't.
Mm-hmm. The way the process worked is we had an open competitive solicitation. We had 23 vendors response, and we awarded 6 contracts related to open education.
So I'll stop here just because we know that's not true, and you and I can kind of explain what really was happening with the vendors and all of that. Just in a nutshell, we have evidence that they did not do competitive bidding because it was during the pandemic. They say they did. And then they're saying they rewrote Amplify and rebranded it. I mean, it went on and on and on. So somebody's lying. And I think she was in a rock and a hard place, because if she told the truth, then she would be implicating the TEA. If she lied, then, you know, we obviously know the truth, and he backed her into a corner. So it was a complete mess. But before that, there were fantastic testimonies exposing Amplify, not just in this Senate bill, but also, as you mentioned, in the House bill, its companion. So we've got Senate Bill 2565, and the House version is House Bill 1605, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I want to go into, just so we don't take too much time here. So basically, we need people to just keep emailing the senators, all the senators and the House representatives for the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee, and tell them this is absolutely unacceptable. And then we have the evidence to show in these districts that Amplify did not move the needle, and they're lying and saying that it did. And they're saying they don't have data from these school districts, which I don't believe that. I don't believe
here's my point. If they don't have that data from the school districts, then they don't have any authority to ever step in to take over Austin ISD, Fort Worth ISD, or Houston ISD. And this commissioner and his buddies that have done his bidding for him in the State House, you know, live in an echo chamber about data. The data says, and it's all manipulated data by them. But now we are able to get the data that shows that Amplify is a failure, and that we have wasted an enormous amount of state money, but then districts have also wasted money. But the worst part of it is that very critical years of a child's education and learning to read have been spent with this, and it is producing disgusting results. I mean, we have children who that is the only thing that they have had for English language arts, and we don't even have 19% success with them. Now, one of our members, Greg Cooper, has been diligently working in the background. And by the way, he's a former military guy, and I always love when we get good patriots invested in this. So a huge shout out to Greg. But he's working on putting the graphs together. And today, he, with the help of some other allies, said, look, we need to pull the data on schools that are not using Amplify and compare non-OER resources to, you know, a traditional book, regardless of what it is, to compare, so that we can show that there is absolutely zero justification for the commissioner to even be proposing that this be written into law, other than that it's another one of his crony deals. And we are, I think, a little bit excited because we've gotten close in the past year to uncovering the crony deals, whether it be to Holdsworth or to Pearson, you know, EdTPA, which now the lieutenant governor literally said he would not allow that to be taken out of the bill, regardless of the fact that it was a 13-0 vote by an elected body, that the governor is going to have the Senate and the House override the vote of the SBOE, the elected body for education, and enforce that EdTPA get a contract. That's a contract to Pearson. So the only reason for doing that, because again, it's not a quality product either. And even the teaching profession says it's not a quality product. It's for a crony deal. So, I hate to do this, but it's the Republicans, and it's our lieutenant governor and our governor. And TFRW can hate us for this, and this Republican group can hate us, but it's past time that we start holding our own accountable. And the lieutenant Lieutenant Governor overriding a 13-0 vote by the State Board of Education to enforce EdTPA being there. That's a crony deal. And then what we see sitting in that room is another crony deal. And that is how our education system has been run. It has been for profiteering, for friends, and that's it, for technology. Now, I want you to talk about Florence Shapiro and virtual ed, Rex Gore, and D. Thompson.
Okay. Well, so we've got, so I referenced this when I spoke in the meeting, in the hearing, because I wrote this article on LinkedIn, and I went over this whole thing. It's connected to both the Amplify deal and the Metaverse Virtual Learning Commission. So the two, for both hearings, they had the same people in the room. So that that spoke volumes. Okay, so I covered all this that came from Ken King's bill last session, House Bill 3643, that set up this Texas Commission for Virtual Ed. You've got all these commission members who, I know several of these people, and you've got Rex Gore, you've got Bernie Francis, he's a conservative guy, Hannah Smith on the Carroll ISD, School Board, Carroll ISD, and then Josue Tomares Torres is a Teach for America teacher who is a darling of Dallas ISD, that they always bring him in for their anything they're doing in Dallas ISD, because what happens there gets scaled statewide. So you've got Senator Larry Taylor, and he was on the Next Generation of Accountability and Assessments Commission, Pam Little State Board, Senator Betancourt, who's been behind a lot of these bad bills. He's a very, very bad legislator, but the conservatives think he's a fighter and he's this badass, tax man, but he is actually duplicitous, very much so. And he is not saving us any money with his fake tax reform. And then Senator West,
I have to jump in here because I hadn't had an experience with Betancourt other than that, he was impossible to have a meeting with, and that his guy Salvo, chief of staff, I can't think of his name now, Salvado or something like that. He was super rude, and because we said, hey, listen, we've already met with you. We want to meet with the senator directly. We want to see his eyes and make sure that he understands what we're talking about. And then the guy went and told another parent that called me a foul name, because I said, no, we've already met with you. We want to meet directly with the senator. And I hear that SREC members can't even get in to see him. And, so this was my first encounter with him when he jumped on the guy from NAACP and was rude to him. And I've heard what other people have said over the years, but I have to say, he reminds me of a poodle. They walk into the room and they want, or a court jester. Everything has to be about them, and they're the center of attention. And it doesn't matter what business is being conducted. They're going to take over and ha, ha, ha. It was quite disgusting, honestly. I hope Houston votes him out. I hope they get rid of him. I hope they find somebody really good, because Houston deserves much, much better than that. And he doesn't deliver any tax cuts. He's a big spender, and he's just not a good representative at all.
Well, so I agree. And the whole point of his bill with Senate Bill 1882 was a charter takeover. And then he had another bill that took all the DNF rated campuses out of the accountability rating. Well, that's ridiculous. And now he's got this virtual learning bill. Right. So we're opposed. Betancourt, we confronted him, and then Senator Donna Campbell tried to interrupt me when I was talking to him during my testimony, which she interrupted me and infringed upon my First Amendment rights. And so that's a whole other thing. So in a nutshell, they have this guy who was put on, this Rex Gore, who was put on the Virtual Learning Commission. And you've got Florence Shapiro was in the room. She used to be the Senate Education Committee chair, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, I don't know how many years ago it was. She's older now, a lot older now. And she has a consulting firm called Shapiro Lynn. She was there with Julie Lynn, who's a charter. They jump around from their charter and their initiatives. They jump from job to job they always feed off the whole education system. It's an ecosystem. So Rex Gore's chief of staff was there. His name is D. Thompson, the letter D. Thompson. He has a past with Teach for America. And so you can see there are all these people. In fact, when the camera was panned on us when we were talking, you could see them in the background. It was House former state rep Dan Huberty, and then you had Rex Gore, and then some assistant guy. I don't know who all these people are, but they're all circling around, and they have to get this virtual learning bill, and they have to get this Amplify bill, and the two are connected. And they want so you and I were explaining there are 4 lanes that they want the taxpayers to pay for. That's public education. Then you got the dual system of charter schools, which we pay for that too. And you could draw the conclusion that our recapture dollars are actually paying for charter schools.
Yeah.
Not a straight line. And then you've got what they're trying to do with this the vouchers and the education savings accounts. And then lastly will be this virtual ed. And so we're trying to stop all of this because this is all just going to fall back on the taxpayers.
Yes.
So I won't go too much into that, but then I was going to pull up a couple of things. This is so interesting to me.
Well, now one of the things that I think that's important for people to understand, because you want to say, well, so what is Rex Gore getting out of this? And we don't know for sure, but I think it's super odd that Rex Gore has the contract for maintaining the Capitol grounds and possibly a lot of other things too. We don't know that, but he does have the contract for maintaining the Capitol grounds, and he's quite friendly with the governor, and the governor made the appointment of Rex Gore to this virtual ed committee, put him in charge of it, gave him a staffer, and then he also put him on the SBEC, on the State Board of Education Certification Committee. And in essence, what is being
card, you can see this here, and it has Cleanscapes on it. So we're walking out of the Capitol, an hour or so later, and I see this truck. I'm like, what are the chances of this? It's so weird. I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone. But he gave me his card. He didn't like me talking about him, and we tried to meet with him. Remember back in the fall?
Yes.
They cut out public. They only had 1 day of public testimony. That's not enough. They should have had public testimony every single time they met. But like you said, we're being run by an appointed appointments, not elected people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just, it's time. People, I mean, people got into, we're living in a time of tyranny and great oppression, and people are going to have to push beyond that. They're going to have to push beyond any kind of fear, and they're going to have to stand up, or the state is gone. I mean, the country is teetering on being gone, but our state is going to be gone. And even if our state is not completely lost, that it will be soon, because the education system is failed, and the future generation is not going to have any respect for a constitutional republic or a constitution at all, much less any work ethic.
This is here on the left. I got Shapiro Lynn, their consulting logo there. And here's Florence Shapiro. I did a Facebook post on her not too long ago, or actually, yeah. But so here she is. She's been tied to commit and Educate Texas. I mean, every bit of the swamp she's tied to. Here she is with my former superintendent. There's Florence Shapiro, Kim Caston, former trustee and board president Richardson. There's Missy Bender, former Plano ISD. I mean, it goes on and on. You got Todd Williams tied to her. She circles wherever the education money is.
Right. So I would say in conclusion that with the news today that the TEA, and we had anticipated the Texas Education Agency, after taking over Houston, that they would swoop in and get Fort Worth after the close of the school year. And Fort Worth has an enormous amount of debt, and most of the schools are in great debt because the state has encouraged that, frankly, and via TASB and TASA, they have encouraged the debt of the schools to be ratcheted up. And so we expected they would take over Fort Worth, but I did not expect that they would step in and take over Austin. And I believe that the commissioner feels pressure and time coming in on him as more and more exposure is happening and more pressure is put on him. And so it's accelerating the path to privatization of all of the large school districts. And so, basically they're stepping in to take over Austin. My call to action would be that the Senate must step in and stop this, that the Senate has the ability to take over the Texas Education Agency themselves, and that it is time for them to do that, that every area of the Texas Education Agency is a blatant failure, and that there's been no respect. And of course, I understand why the lack of respect for SBOE comes from the State House. Our legislators and our senators do not respect the State Board of Education. They feel like that they are should not deserve any respect, that they're not equals to them. And frankly, they should be equals to them, because they oversee 60% of taxpayer funding. And the greatest thing that we are called to do is to educate the next generation. And so I think they should be respected, and they're not. And so when you see that the commissioner does not respect, you understand that, he doesn't feel called to that, because that's not what he sees the State House do. But it's time for the Senate to fulfill their obligation, and they're going to have to take a stand against the governor, and they are going to have to say that they are going to take over the Texas Education Agency. It is a failed agency, and Mike Morath is running loose. He is rampant, and he is going to march on with or without any real authority to take over and privatize all of the big schools, and we'll never get them back. So I believe it's time that the Senate step up, and I hope that we will have that Deuteronomy 1:11 and that David and Goliath. I hope that we will have an incredible legion of people that will stand with us, whether it's in the front of the Capitol or in front of the governor's mansion, or if the halls are so full that there is no sitting room anywhere in the building. And the Senate must be demanded that they stand up. And we have to hold the lieutenant governor and the governor accountable to stopping this. And we must get a complete audit, and we must redo our Texas Education Agency. It is the biggest failure in the state.
It is. And the solution is never the solutions are always local. The work is hard, but it's actually pretty simple. But they don't listen to the simple solutions. They bring in more technology and a nationalized or federalized curriculum. And that's not a solution. And taking over the districts, they've done that in other states. Mayoral or corporate takeover, you don't see there's no marked improvement. So that's not the solution. Yeah. Solutions are local. I want to go over these profiles, because we have that D. Thompson here. And so he was at the Virtual Learning Commission. He was in these hearings for the virtual learning and for the Amplify. And then we sat next to this woman who's the principal of the Metaverse campus. That's where the kids become an avatar 3 days a week in Dallas ISD. So they're using that as one of their models. They're trying to scale it nationwide. So what is happening here in Texas, it matters. It impacts the nation. And then you've got the founder of Stimuli, or at least the supposed founder. I think they tend to, I think it's actually wealthy white people behind the scenes, but they pick a minority so they can do minority-owned business. Yeah. They pulled her from the Apple store, and she's the face of this, and that's her avatar here. And the kids get an avatar, and they go through school as an avatar 3 days a week. So yeah, we're talking, that's why I testified talking about the metaverse. Do we really want all these senators? Is that how you were educated, in the metaverse with an avatar? Like, give me a break. That's not what children in poverty need. It's not what wealthy children need. It's not good for any children. And unfortunately, they're doubling down, and they're really going, they're doing everything they can to push this agenda through and we will have to pay for it.
Right. Well, and something that we saw that aligns with this is the esports. The esports campuses that you see where, you know, they have instead of, you know, true active sports, it's you're playing a game, and there are competitions, virtual competitions. And in our research on the effects of technology on the youth, one of the things listed on there is the rise in obesity and the increase of the incidence of diabetes. And, you know, when our kids are going to school in a metaverse and they're playing games, they're in a gaming system, instead of going outside and playing or doing something physical to play, you can see where this is headed. We are going to have again, if Big Pharma is in control, then it certainly lines up with everything Big Pharma would want, because we're going to have a very, very sick population.
Well, I want to talk about this guy because Texas 2036 was there, and they're heavily involved in this. And this guy,
yes,
Rorschach, I don't know how you say his last name, but
he was interesting.
Well, he talked and talked and talked, which is the only reason we made it in time to testify, because he kept running his mouth. We were like, keep it going, John, keep it going. So Texas 2036 has Margaret Spellings on it. And Margaret was there. She was the Secretary of Ed under George W. Bush. She was there when they were doing No Child Left Behind. And now she's here. She is on the board of Amplify. Major conflict of interest to have the stacked testimony and the invited testimony be Texas 2036, because Margaret Spellings is running that. And so, of course, you know, people don't talk about that. It's part of the coalition to push this is Texas 2036. It's the Commit Partnership. It's TPPF. It's the Texas Association of Business, all the business people surrounding this. And so this is a complete agenda, and it's a major conflict of interest of all these groups, and they're lobbying for this. And they stand to gain huge contracts, because it's not just the technology that they adopt. They have to do training, and there's all these other RFPs that come from it. And if it's going to be scaled statewide, I mean, and then anything they do here, you know, it ends up going nationwide.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting is that, you know, it's clear that he's from 2036, that Margaret Spellings is associated with that. And that's the era of Common Core. I mean, that we had not, you know, they were pushing Common Core, and they're still there, and they're still trying to, you know, embed Common Core into all of these curriculum. And I found it interesting that Vice Chair Campbell said, does this have Common Core in it? Because, you know, the
was a good
pamphlet, the information that I handed out called it Digital Common Core. And so she asked that question, and Kristen couldn't answer it. But I'm thinking to myself, like, do they not, have they not ever connected any of these dots? Of course, this is Digital Common Core. Of course this is. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. We've had audiences with these people, and we've given them enough information that they should be able to connect the dots. And I don't know if they just don't want to believe it. I don't know. But what I do know is that as a result of the testimony and the questions that were asked, that I spent my day yesterday, I made sure that Thursday morning that our data on Fort Worth ISD and Cedar Hill was to Senator Royce West by 10 a.m. in the morning. And I bet you anything that we were able to provide that data more quickly than the Texas Education Agency is. And in part because the Texas Education Agency, I bet you, is probably going to try to manipulate the data to tell the story they want it to tell, which is what Mike Morath has done for 6 years now. Mm-hmm. And nobody has, they take it at face value. I don't know what it's going to take for them to believe the taxpayers. I don't
either. It's really, we're in crisis, and those who know what's going on the most, we're shut out, and we could we could solve this in 3 weeks is what I told them in my testimony. Talk about this, this cat right here. What's going on here?
Oh, I have to look. Well, okay, so that's interesting. So that's Monica Martinez, and she's at every SBOE meeting, and she's really over the instruction. She's worked with TEA for 20 years, and she is probably the one who has led the agenda to get CRT and LGBTQ. She is probably what we often look at Mike Morath and think that he is the tempest in the teapot. She is also the tempest in the teapot. So for 20 years, she has been pushing that. And she's talking to Kristen, God love her. I kind of feel sorry for her, but I don't feel sorry for her. I mean, she took the bullets that Morath should have taken. And I don't know if she's consoling her here or if
she hugged her, and we know who. I think it's important for people to know who Monica is, because Kristen took the bullets, but Monica really is always kind of like this shadowy figure behind the scenes, and she's the one driving a lot of the bad agendas and the progressive agendas at the TEA, besides just Morath, because the conservatives think Morath is leading the TEA in a positive way. But what we're saying, he's duplicitous in that he says one thing to the conservative legislators, another thing to the Democrat legislators, and they both think he's on their team. So that's important.
Yeah, but she has been there for 20 years. And one of the things that I've noticed when I have been at SBOE, and any time that I have testified and SBOE has been going to take some action based on my testimony and the facts that I give them, she will always speak up and contradict and tell them that no, that's not true, and or know that they cannot do that. And she doesn't just do it with me, but anytime SBOE is going to take a divergence away from the path that is being predicted or Delphi, basically, by Monica and by Morath, she will tell them that no, they can't do that they have to do it this other way. And then I know during the health and sex education work study groups that there were public information requests pulled on how those were set up, and you could see that Monica was really directing the outcome of those work study groups. And we were not as successful in our public information requests on the civics and science and health and history TEKS work groups at getting that information in the public information request that would have implicated her in that. So this time, so they've gotten a little savvier, but she also needs to go from the TEA. Again, she's been there for 20 years. And she's been over curriculum, so she's overseen all of this. My question is, if Amplify is the curriculum that they approved and they vetted and they put out there, although we do know that commissioners said it was not vetted, that why would the Senate and the House?
Why are they letting this happen? It's so evil. I mean, and they're all complicit because there's some ordeal. And Donna Campbell was desperate to shut me up, and desperate to shut you up, and desperate to shut Meg up. But let's John Horchak and his, he can run his mouth forever, and let Rex Gore run his mouth forever. And these invited testimonies and these policy makers, it said Rex Gore got some award for being the policy maker of the year. You find these rich guys and they drive policy behind the scenes, and the lobbyists.
Well, and his kids went to
his kids went to Regents, classical. It literally says there, time-tested education, traditional curriculum, classical model. Why does he want to push the metaverse for our children? And he's a social entrepreneur. I think that's another interesting thing we need to point out, is that on Kristen Dobson Hull's resume and on LinkedIn, it says she was a social impact architect or some sort of analyst at Deloitte. I don't know how many years ago. She's been at the TEA a number of years. She was hired since.
She said 5 or 6. So there's one person that was there that I don't know who she is, but she worked for the TEA, and she, I believe, had on a white jacket and black pants, or a white top and black pants, black straight hair. And she came out and she was consoling Kristen before that, because Meg was talking.
Monica. That was the picture I just showed her.
No, that's not. It wasn't Monica. It was another gal. Monica was
there.
This was another gal. When Meg and I were talking to her on the side. No, I know Monica. I don't know who this lady is, but it was super funny. I put my hand on her, slightly on her arm, and it's interesting. I did this with another woman that was an attorney at one of the school districts, and just touch her. And, we grew up in a generation, certainly in the South, that we do touch. I'm a big hugger and everything. And I just touched her in an effort of comfort, like, hey, we know this.
You touch people on the shoulder while we're saying, bless your heart, you're making so many mistakes, darling.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't exactly do that, but yes, sort of. Anyway, the woman, she's paid by the taxpayers. They do not understand it. She's paid by the taxpayer. And she yanked away from me and said, don't touch me. And I'm just like, seriously? Where's your paycheck come from, girl?
Mm-hmm. But what was I saying before? I got to finish that. What about the, what was I just saying? It was important.
Well, you were asking me about Monica and Kristen and the social impact.
The social impact. Okay, let me finish this because this is important. So he also, around the same time he hired Kristen, he had, so through Senate Bill 1318, they hired, and this is in 2017, I guess, that session, they hired a social impact bond director, Andrew Hodge. Now, he's since changed his title on LinkedIn because I kept posting stuff about that. But Kristen has social impact and pay for success in her background. So that means they have investors up front. And the same thing with this Amplify curriculum. They're going to do a pay for success, social impact bond type deal but they're not using investors' money. They're using the taxpayers' money.
Yes.
Somebody gets a big fat return. That's the difference. And that's what Commit has figured out how to do through House Bill 3. And people don't see the funding mechanism and the creative financing schemes going on behind the scenes. And these legislators take the bait. Oh, hey, will you do this bill for me? And then Creighton goes, sure, I'll do that bill for you. And then he goes and does a sales pitch for it. Meanwhile, he's not asking the right questions. He doesn't have any idea the mechanism going on behind the scenes. If he does, shame on him. But I don't think he understands how bad this is. I think he's just going to double down and push it through. And they're all behind it, scratching each other's backs, saying, oh yeah, let's get this through. This is great, because the teachers won't have to write the lessons anymore. They'll have these scripted lessons. Oh, it'll be so great. It'll free up so much time for them. Then meanwhile, they become a digital facilitator, like Ann Newman said. That was fantastic.
Right. Yes. Great testimony by Ann Newman.
That was excellent.
Yeah.
Newman.
Yeah. And actually, Rachel Hell did a great job too.
Oh yes, Rachel Hell was.
Don't forget that Rachel's the first twice. Rachel stepped up twice in a big way. So those were great testimonies that we had not. Yeah, super good testimonies. What I'm hoping for, and I would just say, call to action here. Two things. One, everybody just pray that people like Donna Campbell, Phil King, Tan Parker, we know that Royce West and Jose.
Royce West, let me point this out. I tweeted him this today. He was asking all kinds of questions about reasoning mind when I testified about that in 2016, saying, don't do this. And I said Morath was pushing that in Dallas ISD. Then when he got to the legislature, he did a whole math innovation zone scheme around that with impact. And they track the kids' data, and then they get if they move the math scores and they get a return on the investment for the investors. That's a complete abuse of power. But Royce West, he heard me out when I was questioning. He's like, is your issue that it's Russia? Because it was backed by Russia, Moscow oil and Texas oil. He said, hey, that's your issue, Russia. This was before the whole Russia thing and Trump and all that. And I was like, well, yeah, I kind of am. I do kind of have an issue with it being Russia, but you're missing the point. The point is that it's technology. You've got the kids communicating with a artificial intelligence, And there's nothing that stands between the kid and the device in that program. Oh, okay. Well, and he even acknowledged that there were issues with the results. So here we are. How many years later, Royce is like, oh, and is this another new shiny thing? Yeah, Senator Royce, yes, it's a new shiny thing. So why are you even giving them the mic? It's not working. We're going to try. And I said that in my testimony. I'm going to come back here
and
it's not going to work.
Jose Menendez caught that too. But he could tell that he was going to make Senator Campbell annoyed, so he stopped it. But he said,
"We had the whole
piece of don't call her name.
I'm sorry, she cannot behave like that in a position like that. We can't have that. No, no, ma'am."
Okay, well, I mean, I hear you, but we do need to pray for all of these people that they will find their David and Goliath moment.
You pray for the children. These people are out of the way. That's what
they have got to stand up though to the lieutenant governor, because that's who that is putting the pressure on them, and they have to say, no, we cannot continue and do this. And the thing is that they're looking at their own power, their own, and some of them there, which I really cannot see anybody on that dais getting money out of this. I believe the money people were in the back of the room. I don't believe that anybody at that dais was getting money. I hope not. We know that I have messaged one of them about that, and I hope not. But we have to pray that they are willing to say to the lieutenant governor, listen, you're at the end of your political career. We are not. And we will have to be responsible. And this will be a millstone around our neck if we do not do the right thing here, and that they will, in fact, do the right thing. And they must do.
We don't have a political career. Why would we not be at the end of our?
Not us. That the people sitting at that dais have to go to the lieutenant governor and say that they're not at the end of their political career, but that Dan Patrick is at the end of his political career. Good. And they're just going to have to say, listen, you're on your own here, Dan Patrick. You and the governor are on your own. Y'all are at the end of your rope. We're not. And they're going to have to trust that that their constituents are going to honor them when they do the right thing, and that they're not going to need money, because they're going to have a reputation of solving the problem and doing what's best for the children and the state. And then money won't matter. If you do that, it's just like you and I talk about all the time. You know what? It doesn't matter about the money. It doesn't matter about can we ever run for office, because we're not going to, because what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do what's right for the children, what's right for the state. And even if other groups don't like the fact that we're exposing things and being, I don't know, some people say bombastic, but we just say truthful. We're confrontational, we're direct, we're going to let them know, we're going to provide them with the evidence, and we're going to continue to do that. They're going to have to stand up, or we're going to expose every one of them, including the money behind it all.
Okay. Agreed. All right. Well, so you gave us call to action, and
okay.
Before we close, because we need to close.
Yeah. Okay. So next week, the House agenda and in education, the House agenda and the Senate agenda, they both kind of mirror each other, have the same thing. There are a lot of nefarious, just irrelevant, low-hanging fruit things, like you can't vape at school, and you have to have Narcan on campus, things like that. And
we don't need all these bills. I'm so done.
Yeah, I'm not going to weigh into any of that, other than to let them just figure that out on their own and let it fall along party lines or whatever it is. But people might look at it. If there's something that they feel compassionate about, write a letter. But I'm not spearheading anything there. I am going to be at the Capitol Monday, because we hope the first of many. There's going to be a public announcement that Southlake has parted ways with TASB, and TASB has threatened to sue them and say that they can't, which I think is hysterical. Watch this, TASB. Right. And then hopefully, remember when we voted on what our priorities were, and a lot of people just stuck with the Republican Party priorities, and we're like, no, that's the low-hanging fruit. We're going after the big stuff. We're going to get rid of TASB. And by George, it looks like that Senate Bill 175 is going to get through both chambers. Awesome. And we're going to get that defunded, so that no more taxpayer money can be spent on.
Oh, and you can make sure that people know that when they when you have the charter school lobby going before the legislature, that's taxpayer funded. So that also needs to be defunded. It's not in the bill because it's they have a loophole with that, but it's something that we need to point out maybe for a future.
Well, we could get a committee substitute in the House. It hasn't been voted on in the House. So let's try to find somebody to get a committee substitute. And if anybody has a great relationship and they have a calling on that, reach out to us. We'd love to have somebody pick up and do a little work on that. We could get a committee substitute on it's Senate Bill 175. It's going to the House to get a substitute to include the charter school lobbyists, because yes, as Lynn said, that's taxpayer funded. And then so no big, but I would say the biggest call to action is a full audit of the TEA and to vote against Senate Bill 2565 and House Bill 1605, and to kill Senate Bill 8 in the House. It's out of the Senate and moving to the House. And super important there, super important. So just hammer away at as many letters as you can get. And then if y'all need us and you need clarity on anything, reach out.
Familiesengaged.org, familiesengaged.org, or info@familiesengaged.org. Okay, well, happy Friday to everyone. Thank you, Mary. And
thank you, Lynn. And thanks to Meg. Meg was a great,
fantastic.
She was fantastic. Yeah, she for a little bit she wanted to give up, and then the next thing you know, she's the caboose pushing us on through to keep on going. So thankful for that.
All right, talk to y'all later. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.